So Module 4, Part C is Visual Art, and we're going to be working through this module in LearnLine. So I'm going to follow these presentations today which are already in there. I haven't created my own because I was sick last week, but essentially what I was doing anyway was just summarising the content which was in here and putting it into a PowerPoint presentation. So that there was different ways, so I kind of met different people's learning styles. So, oops, I've already got it open. So this is chapter 1 in the textbook, the Roy, Baker and Hamilton textbook, and then we're also going to be talking about chapter 8 in the second half of the lecture. So chapter 1 is termed A Vision for the Arts in Education.
Are you supposed to have that textbook?
No, I wouldn't worry too much about it if you don't have it.
No, I don't. I think there was a textbook.
Yeah. It's funny, I actually was told that the textbook was the first year PE one, the ECU300 textbook, but it's got nothing to do with art in there. So, but anyway, the textbook that I'm referring to with this one is the Baker Hamilton one. So the arts, so unique nature, what they do for people, access and equity. So they're the components that make up the arts. I'm just going to go through and have a discussion on these questions, so you can then head to the discussion board later with some knowledge based on today's conversation, which I want to have in these 3 questions. So what is your philosophy of arts education? Should all the arts be included in the curriculum? And what would you do if the arts was cut from the curriculum? So first of all, what is your philosophy of arts education? I was going to start off, but I'm trying to learn how to just be quiet and shut up and let people talk.
It's essential.
Yeah, I was going to say it needs to be in
Extremely essential. Right? Because
providing like a way for students to express themselves that's different to what's already there.
Could they express themselves in another way?
Yeah, but I was thinking like it's an environment which they can express themselves that's different to like English, maths, that sort of thing, so that they can kind of be as creative or not as they choose to be.
So I think some students are not necessarily academic, but they could be artistic.
Yeah.
And for them to get something out of the school day, it could be a case of an art lesson or something being the highlight of their day, their week. Whether it's dancing, visual arts, music, whatever.
Yeah. So we're speaking specifically today about visual art, but when we talk about the arts, we're also talking about dance and drama and music. And I find it really difficult to think, how could you express yourself in another way without one of them? PE comes to mind as a form of expressing yourself through movement, but outside of that, it's so to challenge what you said. Like I find it really hard to come up with an answer to how you could express yourself.
So I think English, like when students are creating written work, you know, they're going to use different phrases. Like each student's going to have a different way of approaching the genre of writing and the topic. Like, I mean, I think of narrative writing in that sense, but you could also think of like report writing and how they're going to academically express information. You know, how I express information is going to be different to everyone in this room. So, and like maths, like the way that they explain a problem is going to be different. So it's just, I think of arts as more freedom of expression rather than like, whereas the others are more academic expression.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a great way of explaining it, but that's kind of, I guess, where I've made the differentiation.
I really like that.
So you can express yourself through a painting, a sketch, carving. I know it's visual, but I don't know, collage or whatever.
Hmm. So should all the arts be included in the curriculum? Do you think that it's necessary to incorporate media arts, dance, drama into the curriculum?
Yes. I have to say why.
No?
Okay, just
Some
say
cases, yes.
Doesn't.
no, yes.
I think it's essential, like as a regular part of your curriculum. I think it's essential.
Yeah. So what would you do if it was cut from the curriculum?
I'd still keep it in. Me as a teacher, I would still keep it in some way. So whether it's I'm working it in somehow to the English curriculum, or I'm working it into, I don't know, whether I'm working it into PE or whatever, like, I'd still somehow try and work some sort of artistic expression, whether visual performing into what I'm teaching.
I think there'd be a risk academically as well, because the arts is very supportive of other learning areas, whatever the form of arts is.
Yeah.
And not only that, if that was cut from the curriculum, teachers lose non-contact time because there's often a designated art teacher and she's doing all kinds of things, whether it be work with modelling clay, whatever you're using, it's fine motor skill, it's just everything. So it would have a knock-on effect academically. I think grades would struggle.
Yeah.
I just think they do.
I think, like, I'd have to agree with what Leanna said, like, in terms of, my mind automatically goes to music and maths. For me, they were hand in hand going to school. Like, I think the school that I went to, if they'd have cut out music, not just my maths grades, but I'd say pretty much everyone in both programs, their maths grades would drop, and vice versa. Like, I mean, I know maths is an important, like I said, it's an important academic subject, but I mean, if you were to say, well, what if you dropped maths, then I think grades would suffer again across the board. So, yeah, I kind of feel like,
And you could use the arts to teach maths, English,
yeah,
parts of the topics.
you
to
can,
make it
you
more
can use it as
engaging.
like examples and stuff, like you can
Yes.
say, okay, like using it in terms of like a grid system or something, like if you were trying to teach maths and geography or something, like starting off with a child's favourite art piece and saying, okay, well, we defined, something in this painting or whatever.
Yeah.
In terms of grid referencing or whatever. So I think,
Or doing a project to conclude something about history, they're going to have to make a visual poster or something out of modelling clay, out of cardboard. What can they make out of recyclables? It's still going to be visual.
it's still going to be creative, like,
Yes. Because I think it feeds feeds one's creative mind, I think.
Yeah. Cool. So there's been a lot of support for it as a supporting subject subject which is used to support other areas, literacy, numeracy, and so on. But I've also had a little bit of support for having it as a standalone subject.
I feel like either way, whether you have it as an incorporating subject or whether you have it as a standalone, I think it still needs to be a part of the curriculum. But if you were to take it away, the actual arts curriculum away altogether, kids are going to be losing out on a lot of stuff.
That happened in South Africa. They took away arts and PE, and it was a disaster.
Really?
It was missing from the curriculum for almost a decade.
Yeah.
And I think I'm touching on that in my PowerPoint.
Yeah.
Because the government thought it's more important to focus on academics, but they didn't realise that this is actually linked. They all
Yeah.
linked. And nobody got smarter, so it was a waste.
Yeah. Do you know how long ago that was?
I would probably say this happened from about 2003 or so.
Oh, so fairly recent.
Yeah, I dropped it for 10 years, or it was 1997, I can't remember.
Yeah.
It was missing for 9 and a bit years.
Oops. So they're just the main points from the textbook. We won't go into them but if you're watching the recording, you can hit pause there and have a look. So the arts are everywhere. The arts are what it means to be human. The arts are central to human existence, and they are an aesthetic experience. The United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organisation, UNESCO, considers arts education to be a universal human right for all children, and highlights the importance of the arts education in cultivating creative potential and cognitive development. So they help to build creativity, and they also help to develop cognition, so thinking. They help to develop the brain. There's a lot of research out there as well about how different arts, music for example, helps to create more neurons, which are the nerve cells in the brain, and more neural connections, so the connection of one neuron to another neuron and so on, and also myelin on a nerve pathway, which is the fatty substance which sits across a neuron, which allows the message to bounce from one neuron to the next. So the more myelin you've got on a nerve, the quicker the signal gets passed along. So arts has been shown to develop all those aspects of cognitive development. The arts occur through the senses rather than linguistically or mathematically. So while we've talked a lot about how they support linguistic and mathematical development and understanding, they occur through the senses, so they can allow you to develop linguistically and mathematically in a different way, in a way which can help develop understanding. So in a unique way to just simply doing mathematics or reading and writing, listening and speaking. The central premise of the book is that children must first think and act through their senses as artists in order for them to value and engage meaningfully with arts in their lives. Are you writing all that down?
Mm-hmm. I wish I'd learned how to do shorthand.
So culturally determined, they are part of every educational curricula, but are defined differently according to the culture in which they are created. So what type of arts are in your culture? I was thinking about this when I was reading through these presentations, and I thought to myself, this is where it really emphasises to me like a kind of lack of culture, in inverted commas, being a white Australian. And maybe you can help me. But so my background is like so many Anglo-Saxon Australians, I think that's the right terminology, who come from a combination of Scotland and England and Ireland, and on my mum's side and my dad's side further back through to Germany. But a lot of my family has linked in over the years since, I don't know when they first came to Australia, but I'll presume in the 1800s and late 1800s. And they, on my mum's side, came through New Zealand first and then into Sydney. But since then, there's a lot of linkage into the Indigenous culture, and even now my partner who's Indigenous and so are my kids, obviously through that. But for me, I think about like what type of arts are in my culture, and I don't really know, so maybe you guys can help me by explaining what type of arts are in your culture. Because looking at the surface, apart from our South African, it looks like everyone may be in a similar boat to me.
Is there some cultures that maybe don't, I don't know, that don't have art?
Yeah.
I think there's arts in all cultures, but it's the meaning of art that might differ. So, while we might see, say in Bali, their funerary traditions, they see that as a funerary tradition, we see that as very artistically maybe diverse, just because of all the, fantastic clothes and statues and stuff that they might But in our culture, it's all very dry and dreary. So I think the definition of art might be different depending on your culture. But my culture, I'd have to say, would be very, I guess, very similar in that I'm not really linked to, I guess, one specific cultural background. I've got basically Anglo-Saxon as far back as we can count. So basically, I guess anything like classical, Baroque, even Celtic, anything like that, probably as diverse as our.
Well, I don't know what my arts would be, because my mother's Welsh.
Yeah.
And my father's from India. Anglo-Indian, whatever you want to call it. I can't tell you how many times I've been asked why I'm not Indian because of my skin colour. Because people will assume that white people can't be born anywhere else anyway. That's just off topic. But I just think when we were younger, my father used to teach us how to play some Indian games that the servants where he lived used to teach him and stuff. Yeah, he had servants. Very privileged. But I don't know. Can cooking be like? Because the food was sometimes colourful. It was.
It's not something I considered, but yeah, I like that. I think cooking could be a type of an art.
Because of the textures they use, and the spices,
The way they present on.
yeah, and
The skills
it's
they
just
use to create.
colourful. I'm just thinking, is that a bit of the arts? I mean, are we looking at culinary things here? But
Yeah.
Well, arts is all like
Definitely.
colour and texture anyway, so
yeah,
why can't food be part of that? Because food has colour, food has texture.
and was using like the spices, and nothing was pre-made. Like he would make a curry like once a week, but it had be a little bit yellow, a little bit orange, but it still ate it regardless. And then on my mom's side, I don't know if there's anything really artistic there. She's Welsh, she knows. Other than the types of costumes they might wear, and she doesn't have a Welsh costume. I don't know. And her form of arts, she used to do judo. Very interesting.
Yeah.
So food it is, there we go.
Just thinking like my grandfather was very, very proud of his Scottish heritage, extremely proud of it. And I just remember like my grandparents before their funeral, they put together like little boxes of like what they wanted at their funeral. And one of the things was, he wanted the bagpipes playing. Like he wanted the bagpipes playing, and his children, so my dad and his siblings were like, okay, that's what we're doing then, like. And they made fun of that because they'd grown up with him being a family historian and being, I guess, proud of all of that. And I guess that kind of falls into our kind of not very diverse UK background, but I guess it's part of our family culture. Like even now, I'll pick up, an instrument, and I think I enjoy playing more Celtic than say white European classical, which is basically from the UK across to like Germany. So it's kind of great. It's a lot broader than I guess the Celtic side of things, particularly UK Celtic.
Yeah.
But it's just interesting that was his kind of set thing. He wanted that. If he got nothing else, that was the one thing that he wanted at his funeral, the bagpipes playing.
Yeah. So there's your.
Yeah, they do sound awesome, but it was that one thing he was really stubborn about.
Yeah.
That he was like, nah, if I'm going out with bagpipes.
My granddad, at his funeral a couple of years ago, wanted and had a Richmond scarf and a McDonald's packet of chips.
Oh.
So yours sounds much nicer than that. Do you have anything?
I'd say different.
I have an incredibly rich artistic cultural background with both parents being art teachers and artists themselves, and having and art, many types of arts were celebrated and encouraged in my growing up. In the art studio we could do painting, sewing, music. In the pottery studio we could do any kind of pottery that we wanted to do, and there still does. Dad still teaches pottery classes now, glasswork, printing. Oh, we have 4 printing presses down in the shed. And yeah, every time I go home, if it's Easter time, then we all get together and we celebrate arts. We create things together, whether it be decorating eggs or making tablecloths or aprons at Christmas time or funny Christmas hats or whatever we might be doing. So we're constantly celebrating and using arts as a way of expressing ourselves and communicating with each other.
Was there one particular culture that you identified with art, or was it just all art culture in itself?
Particularly because both my parents come from the Netherlands, that has a strong influence on the types of arts that we will be doing. Dad, for a long time, did painting, glasswork, printing, and did I say pottery? Yeah. Pottery, painting, glasswork, painting, yeah. And Mum was always doing painting and drawing.
So were they like all classical, or were they just expression? Like, was there?
Dad's version of painting was abstract landscape for a long time. Very awkward, very interesting compositions of wrong angles on purpose, mixed in with trees and a table. And Mum's version of painting was expressive portraits.
So it's a mixture of art culture and cultural art.
Yes, but now Mum has gone into classical drawing again, so she's gone back to learning the structure of human bones and the muscular system so that she can better make a portrait. So she's been doing that these last 2 years, and her portraits are
I love some Insta art classes here.
I
know, that's wrong of you to tell her. And actually, I've seen you.
I think in terms of my art culture, so I had that influence of the Netherlands and both parents being very artistic, but growing up in South Australia, out of the country, that also influenced my current cultural being as an artist. So looking at the kind of landscape that I was exposed to and how I would express that in my own art was based on my surrounds. And yeah, I guess that still comes through today. And that's it.
You should be up here. So the arts, as I sort of mentioned a little bit earlier, aesthetic experience, sensuous forms of communication and a language. So the arts are an aesthetic experience. They are a form of communication and they're a language in their own right because they're passing on meaning.
So what does aesthetic mean? The rest of that?
Aesthetic.
Yeah, does that mean forms of communication and languages? That's what.
No, the arts are just an aesthetic experience.
Okay, but what does aesthetic mean?
Visual look. So aesthetic means the way it appears or the way that you see it. So
That's a fancy word.
Yeah.
So the way it looks and appears.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can't say it any better than that.
arts being an aesthetic experience, they mean that it's something that you experience through your eyeballs.
And luckily for me, I'm on 4, right?
So the 5 areas of art in the Australian curriculum, as we've spoken about a lot of times, particularly in the first week, you've got visual art, media arts, dance, drama and music. They're all very much interrelated. When you're working on something, for example, you're in literacy and you're looking at a small book, a story about a wombat, for example, that lives under a tree, you can then incorporate ways of learning literacy, but at the same time arts. But you can certainly learn, reading, writing, speaking and listening, using art as kind of the vehicle to get there. So you can, using that book of the little wombat living under the tree, go and get the students to engage in visual art by drawing it, painting it, creating clay models, whatever it might be. Media arts would be using a computer. Creative dance, maybe it's a play at your thing in assembly, you know, when the students put on like a performance. Might be acting it out, drama, and then adding music to it, which doesn't have to be fancy music like where they're actually creating a song, but it could be music in terms of percussion, and it could be body percussion, stomping, clapping, and so on, making noise with their voice, which is a form of singing. So the big disconnect between policy and provision, access and equity, so access to quality arts education. So it varies between systems, so departments, schools, teachers and classes. For example, some schools will have great art education, whereas another school might not. You could have a great teacher, and often what the quality of the arts education in a school comes down to the quality of the teacher teaching it. So particularly with emphasis there on the specialist teacher. If you have a specialist teacher in your school, the better they are at teaching art. They don't necessarily mean to be good at art. Often you'll find that they are good at art and they have a background in art and an interest for art, and that's why they're teaching art, but doesn't have to be. So, but generally you'll find that the better quality an arts program is in the school comes down to the quality of the teacher, particularly the specialist teacher. There could be, and that then impacts the school, but you can have it across different systems too. So, and then also within the class, and in terms of what that's about is, you know, the way the teacher, for someone who's scared of art, for example, they don't believe they're creative, they're probably not going to think about creative ways of teaching things in the same way someone who is very creative might be, or who is not afraid of incorporating different areas of art, for example, music, dance, drama, and so on. So there was that research which was shared and learned, it was in one of the modules in the last 2 weeks, that Sharon put up about, actually just see if I can quickly find it, about quality art, the quality of art education in Australian schools, and it was stating that this national review here, so it was in the last module, music, and it was saying really essentially what I'm saying, in that the review found that there was a big gap, that art education was quite good in Australian schools, but there was a big gap between the best and the worst. And so, what they found was the schools that were best at incorporating art into their curriculum had teachers that were better at teaching art. They were more interested in art, they enjoyed it more, and they incorporated it more into their lessons. So really what it came down to was improving the quality of teachers in terms of teaching art. Where art sits in terms of the hierarchy in the curriculum, so is it just seen as like a supporting subject which is just used just to help teach some literacy or numeracy concepts? Is it placed with high emphasis in the school curriculum? And then also hierarchy within the arts. So are all 5 art streams taught equally? Dance, music, drama and so on. What do you reckon?
Visual arts is what people think of when they think of art, and very little attention is paid to media arts. Music is often a separate strand, but also sometimes only a choice for a child, so I would learn an instrument that is done on their own time. Not much drama is done in primary schools particularly. normally. Dance is sometimes left to PE. So in terms of the arts, it's always just visual arts going to painting.
Yeah, because when I was at, sorry,
No, you're right, you go.
when I was at Woodruff, there was only, I was at 3 and 4, and there was only 2 children in class that I was teaching that would go and do music or learn an instrument because they wanted to. It wasn't a, oh, let's go all go and learn music till all go together. It's whoever wanted to do it and had the instrument, had the passion or wanted to do it was going to do it, nobody else did it.
My experience in my placement schools has been that with at least 2 of them, there was kind of an equal standing of music and visual. I'd agree that there was lower emphasis put on like drum and dance, but they did have like a lunchtime dance club. It was
Yes,
kind of
it's not part of the
no,
curriculum.
it's not, but that's what I'm saying, like it's kind of a low emphasis to the point where it's a lunchtime activity.
And do you know any school so far that teaches media arts has a strand?
Not as a strand. The class that I was in last year, they did something that was kind of a cross between media arts and IT, but it wasn't like a media strand that was kind of taught across the school, like they didn't have a set curriculum strand like visual arts or something, which in this day and age you would think that would be becoming more prominent, but for whatever reason it's not. But I think they do need to have more emphasis on making them equal in schools. I don't know how they would do that, but there needs to be something.
I think also in regards to the 5 strands, it's easy for other subjects to include visual arts as one of their assignment. You could say, oh, present this as a painting or present this as
Yeah, you can
visual arts as part of your assessment.
yeah, you can cover visual arts curriculum as part of
Other subjects.
Other
But
subjects.
It's harder to dance and drama and
Yeah.
music.
whereas I think it is harder to incorporate the other ones, but like you said, like dance has come as part of PE. So I'm wondering, is there a way that you can incorporate that as a cross-curricular thing between, like, say, drama and PE, have that as a...
It's definitely more scope to use drama in language-based classes.
Yeah, like
But
English
they should
and-
write a script in English.
Yeah,
For-
there'll be various solutions to...
I think the major one that's always lacking, last year I took my grade reception one class up to the local gallery to go and look and describe the arts that they've seen. And it was mostly paintings and a few sculptures. And there was some pictures of naked people, of course, always in the museum or an art gallery. And they're giggling about it. And I walked up and said, what's funny about it? Do you laugh when you see your mum in the shower? No, I'm like, what's funny about it? It's just because someone's painted it. How does it make you feel? And got them thinking about it rather than just what you're talking about there with agency is taking responsibility for their own thoughts about art.
So the characteristics of high quality arts education programs according to Bamford include partnerships with the community and arts organisations, shared responsibilities between stakeholders, opportunities for performance and exhibition, critical reflection, problem solving and risk taking, collaboration, inclusivity, assessment and reporting, professional learning for teachers and flexible school organisational structures. It includes sequential learning planned to enable growth in arts making and responding, sustained learning from preschool, substantial learning from the 5 arts domains of dance, drama, media arts, music and visual arts, child-centred teaching, treating the child as an active learner, authentic activities and processes, inclusion of children of abilities, and approaching the arts from diverse cultural perspectives, as we talked about at the very start. Arts education as praxis reflects the real world, occurs at a distinct activity that is done, practical, intentional and conscious. is situated in and explores the arts in many cultures and their diverse forms, and is both cultural understanding process, is authentic, so learner is active maker and learner. So your role, grounded in your approach, so learner agency, so your cultural background, your attitude to the arts, and also your role in the provision of the arts. So that's in reference to what your role is in ensuring that arts is treated fairly in the curriculum, I suppose. Is a good way to say it. Your role as an educator, so a generalist versus a specialist. Whether you are one or the other, what are your strengths, what are your expertise, and what will you do to improve your skills and expertise in all the arts? And it makes me feel a little bit guilty now when I think about my teaching career. I didn't go out and, not that I can think of, maybe I did, in a roundabout sort of way, certainly not in a specific way, improve my skills and expertise in all of the arts. Oh yeah, no, I suppose I did through just mucking around. I remember when I was teaching IT at one point, one of the activities which was in that unit, which was band 3, not typically grade 8s, and they had to create like a picture using paint. And at the time it was like using paint. I remember using paint when I was in high school, and it was kind of cool. It was really, what I can remember, the only thing you could really use to create art on a computer. But back then there were so many other ways to create art, but they had to use paint to do these certain activities to create something, create an artistic piece. And the students didn't particularly like it because they wanted to be using Adobe or something fancy, and had all the skills to do it, but we were getting them to use something really basic to show that they could make really cool things with something really basic. But anyway, so that's kind of my experience with teaching.
Can I ask a random question?
Yeah.
I need to write a unit of work that incorporates English and history for my placement. So I thought about looking at the Victorians and what the Victorian era was about in England and what the education system was like to what it is now. What art thing to incorporate the arts into that could I do? Could I get some suggestions? Because we're going to be touching on a couple of things like the uniform differences, the school building, punishments. Like if a kid got something wrong, they had to stand on a comb on the head with a dance on it. And, I mean, you wouldn't do that today, but this is what this whole topic's going to cover. That I need to write. It's just ideas that I've had. But to have an art activity to conclude the unit of work, what Victorian history is like English, everything.
What age
Get some
group?
suggestions. Year 2, 3. It's a mixed class. Opposite.
The first thing, and anyone else can feel free to jump in, anyone else. The first thing that comes to mind to me is like a scroll with pictures and where you burn the edges, I think I remember doing an activity like that when I was in about grade 2, and where we had to burn the edges and stuff. Even like that was a skill that I remember Mum showing me how to make the burn marks on the side of the paper. It looked really cool. And then have like all images and stuff placed on it. That's what comes to mind first for me.
So you'd be thinking a health and safety assessments needed for that as well.
I don't have to burn the edges, but yeah, you could. So my first thought is visual art,
Yes.
and I'm conscious of that based on what we've already said about visual art being the one that kind of is thought about most.
And there's also 12 students that don't function well academically, so I've got to cater for 12 that are alright and 12 that are below.
What you could do in
But I just think an art activity would be nice.
a drama activity for them, because it's part of the arts, is you could get them to act out the differences between school in Victorian times and school today.
Yeah.
And for those who can't write down their script, what you can do is just record what they're saying as they're explaining the script to you, and then you can So it comes out in script.
Speech to text. Yeah, I learned about that in my unit in summer. So, speech to text. So, any other ideas for Victorian? It's supposed to be an English unit, but my mentor teacher wants English and history. She changed it from English and art, from art and well-being to English and history.
If the kids are too nervous to act it out themselves, you can get them to create puppets so they can use the puppets to act out their script for them. Because then you're using visual arts as in creating the puppet, drama, history, and English.
Any other ideas?
I think I'd stick with the drama side of things. As when you said that you need to have two different lots, like
History and
two
English.
different targets of literacy confidence levels. I think the scroll idea to me is too much text. It could be too academic for the other group.
She's got 3 students that read at adult level in that class, believe it or not. And then there's a massive gap from the 3 that can read at our level to those that are probably in year 1 level reading.
Yeah.
So the speech to text would be a good idea.
Yeah, I like the idea of the drama play, whether that's them acting it out, reading it out.
So maybe I
Puppets.
could type out some keywords, some short sentences or something, keywords to get them in their groups, and they go out and act it out for 10 minutes, and we make like an audience thing and watch them and clap them and give them feedback.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. Because I haven't had to write an integrated unit before, so.
Yeah.
I think that would be a nice for the last day, once they finish learning about the uniforms.
Oh, you need to allocate time for them to rehearse and all that,
Yes.
a fair bit of time.
Especially at such a young age.
Yeah, year 2.
Like year 6 is they're probably going to do it.
Year
Oh,
2, 3,
quicker.
we need like half an hour or 20 minutes or something.
Yeah,
Then we can turn the class into like a, I don't know, theatre, something. I
yeah.
don't know.
The other thing you could do is to create get the kids to bring in shoe boxes, and they create, I forget what they're called, you know,
Diorama.
have like a diorama where you have a little scene created using, and most schools have just big boxes of just stuff, pipe
What's the
cleaners
shoebox
and
thing called? Diorama? How do you spell that?
DIA,
What is it?
MA?
Like a scene in a box?
Yeah.
Oh.
So it's like a 3D scene,
Oh.
and then they might have plasticine there.
Newspaper and stuff like that.
They'll have lots of glue and they'll just make a scene. But there'd be a lot of scaffolding that would go into it. Like, what does a scene look like? Like, what does a scene from Victorian times look like?
And I'm going to show them pictures of the classrooms, the kind of furniture that I have to still write this all down, that they would have had, the school clothes that were up till then, you know,
Yeah.
how we've got technology, that blackboard, there's the differences. So there's some things that are the same, and then they have to show me on the chart.
Yeah.
What do you call them? KWR chart or something? Is that what
KW.
it's called? Where you have the 3 circles and the ones linked to the
Oh,
red.
Venn diagram.
Yes,
Yeah.
Venn diagram. So we don't get the KWR. That's a different thing. Yeah, Venn diagram for that.
If you were going to do that, like, it would be difficult for grade 2 and 3 students to be able to create that much detail where you've got a character with clothes on. Some would definitely be able to do it, but a lot would also struggle with getting. But there's no reason why they couldn't, especially if they were going to take it home to work on it at home. They could certainly get help. But what I would be doing if I was doing that is that would be part of like a big, like a whole program that might go minimum 5 weeks, and you'd have to dedicate like after lunch every day to working on it for probably 2 weeks.
I've only got like a week to deliver.
Yes, yeah, you still could, but so I'd be dedicated to that. So after lunch, they come in, they're silent reading, and then you've got 45 minutes to an hour for them to work on it. And like day 1, they'll be working on create your character. You have to have your character created by today. Then Tuesday, then those who haven't finished it, you're working on it. Those who have finished it, which is hopefully half to 3/4 of the class, are then working on the next part of it, you know.
So
Like,
you, in terms of characters, are you talking about the teacher in those days?
yeah, the teacher,
The school, the student?
yeah, developing the people that are going to be in the diorama. And then the next day might be about developing the scene, you know, make your trees or your buildings or whatever it might be.
No conditioning?
Yeah, so and then like I'll say actually, sorry, day one will probably be like painting the inside of the box or whatever, putting things and then building things later. Yeah.
I wondered if I should hire a Victorian costume and wear it to school. Then I figured, no, that'll be too much. I'll probably faint just walking from the car. Frills and all sorts.
Yeah, I have got a few the good ideas there. So concluding this, there's 2 slides to conclude actually. The arts enable us to express and communicate our individual and shared perceptions of what it means to be human, what it is like to live in a particular culture, and promote cultural understanding. There you go, there's your error there. Despite the disconnect between policy and practice, as an early childhood and primary educator, you have a unique and important role to play in the delivery of quality arts education experiences to the children you are in your care. It is you who will allow the arts to make a difference in these lives. And that just reinforces in my own mind that example of the dioramas that I saw when I was doing relief at a school in the grade 1 class. The teacher had them creating a diorama of their bedroom, I think it was, or their house. What was it? I can't remember what it was about, but they were creating a room. And I remember there was like little people in it, and they had like beds and sinks and.
So what did they use to make all their things with?
Oh, they had just big boxes of just stuff. There was
Toys.
materials and yeah, there was.
So if we did this for my Victorian English history, whatever, I would just be like, what kinds of? I don't think paper mache would look like it.
No.
Because at the
It
time
might
it takes
be.
to dry and
Yeah, it could be clay. I'd be like not clay, what's it?
modelling clay,
Yeah, like
plasticine.
plasticine and stuff like that. I'd be using to create a lot of stuff, like particularly the people, and then
Maybe
little
use-
like there's, like to make it if you're making a table or desk or something, use those little cereal boxes, the little tiny ones.
Oh yes, with the selection of
A lot of kids were using them to make beds, so they open it up, they take the fluffy parts out of it.
technology and design too, really.
Yeah. And then part 2, a practical approach to the arts in education that emphasises authentic practices and processes, is reflective to diverse and cultural and unique cultures, and that positions the learner as an active arts maker and responder, will make a difference to you as a professional and most importantly to the children in your care. And then there's just some slides there. Okay, do you want to have a break?
Sure.
Alright, so chapter 8, this is the second part of the lecture. So this chapter is called Learning in Visual Arts, from that textbook by Roy Baker and Hamilton. Visual arts are traditionally comprised of drawing, painting, printmaking and sculpture. Visual arts in early childhood, a common practice to encourage exploration and artistic expression through play-based programs. Discussion. The lecturer hands you a piece of paper and asks you to draw a self-portrait. What is your reaction? If I was to get you to draw a self-portrait right now, do you want to do it?
I had to do this when I did the art unit. Wow.
Okay, so in your books there, I want you to draw a self-portrait. No, just joking. What did you just think right then?
You want as long as possible.
Yeah, I thought, oh my god, I don't want to do this.
I was just going to draw around the face because I like drawing preschool level,
I think I put like under preschool level.
I can't draw.
But I was fine with it.
So the artistic student was the one that was like...
You should be able to draw.
Yeah.
I find that very, very interesting, just to see you were going to put it off.
I was going to put it off as long as possible. Which is pretty much what I did for my, like, the art subject. We had to draw a self-portrait. I pretty much put that assignment off for as long as physically possible.
And so students in the class will be exactly the same, and you as a teacher will likely be the same in teaching that and incorporating those elements of art. For example, drawing. You may be less inclined to get students to do that because you're not in love with it yourself, whereas you love it, so you'll be more inclined to potentially be more creative. I know that it's not something if someone asked me to draw a portrait of it, it's going to be crap. It's going to be such a crappy job, and I probably would have done a similar thing, done like a circle and put some ears on it and some hair on it, and it would have looked nothing like me. It would have looked like something that a 4-year-old would have done. And I would have felt very negative about it.
Or maybe you could have given the child, say, taken a photo of each child, but cut it in half, and then they have to do the left and the right side of their face.
Symmetry.
Yeah.
That's a good idea, yeah.
That might work.
And that makes it much easier. I've seen that done actually, and that makes it much easier.
Yeah.
And what you get actually looks a lot more like a portrait than
Almost
if you did it
a
from
likeness
scratch.
at least.
I've seen similar where that you have like a mirror in front of you, rather than doing it like off of memory. But then like each sheet just has like a little handheld like mirror, and then you just go, okay, my face is this general shape, and they draw that, and then look again and like look at what shape their eyes or nose or ears are. Which I guess is similar to the symmetry idea, but
So what we're all saying is that for a child, depending on their ability level, you need some scaffolding. You can't just go, here, draw yourself.
Exactly.
So you either need to provide them with a template, or you've done some skill building before you say, here, go draw yourself a portrait.
like with the mirror or the symmetry.
Or you've got half a picture on the whiteboard and you say, okay, now I'll start with the outline before you add more the other features. And we don't want to see horns and daggers because you're drawing yourself. I'm sure you'll get that too.
You guys have just answered the rest of that, so that's really good.
We do say
Terminology, making and responding, two big aspects of art. Visual art tools, so these elements, principles and concepts apply to both traditional and new media and are flexible and open to change. They form the basic language of art. Just as we use principles of grammar to combine words to make sentences, artists use art elements and principles to form compositions in many forms, such as painting, sculpture, and digital images. These elements and principles are like building blocks in that they are used to construct artworks. So you're talking about scaffolding, and don't just give children, say, draw this, but show them how to do so. Artists manipulate selected elements and principles and add additional concepts such as appropriation to compose their art. And not every artwork is made from every element and principle, but most have at least two within it, for example, colour and form. So different art forms include drawing, painting and digital media, printmaking, 3D and 4D. Principles include unity, variety, balance, rhythm, emphasis, harmony, proportion and scale. Do you know what each one of them means? Do you want to explain them? Because you'll be able to do a better job than me. What's unity?
Unity, you're looking at
how it all comes together.
I really have no idea.
I'm just thinking what unity generally means. You unite.
Variety, to me that just means having a variety of different textures or shades or colour.
Techniques and stuff.
Yeah, tone. Balance, I don't really understand that, but balance, I would presume, is that it's even, that it's not sort of, although I suppose that's what kind of...
There's balance in like a visual piece of art, like you don't have it all black and one red flower, because that's not balance.
It depends on what you're trying to portray. Like if it was Remembrance Day and you had one red poppy in amongst
It could be
a sea
same.
black, well, to me, that would be balance. And that would have emphasis. And, you know, it could have proportion and scale depending on what the actual black is, whether it's just black or a black hill or whatever. But I think it would be balance within context. It would be rhythm within context. So it would be all those within the context of what you're trying to portray.
Elements of design include line, colour, value, shape, space, texture, form, time and motion. I think that's also pretty self-explanatory, unless you disagree. No. In the Australian curriculum, it outlines the knowledge, skills and understandings that children can develop through visual arts practices. They are set out for each band and develop in depth and complexity across the years. These include various modes of representation such as subject matter, forms, for example, painting, sculpture, styles such as realism, abstraction, techniques such as silkscreen printing making, photo montage, visual conventions like design elements and principles, materials and technologies. Terminology, practices. Practices including the actual space where artists work, for example, the studio, exhibition spaces, various skills such as investigation, observation and practical and processes. Viewpoints. Viewpoints in terms of both making and responding are considered. These include the context in which artworks are made and experienced by artists and audiences. So would I be right in saying that viewpoints would be like the art gallery?
No.
No?
Viewpoints, you're talking about the artist who's creating a piece of artwork, they have a viewpoint and they're trying to express that through their art. What the Australian curriculum is also saying is that a viewpoint comes from the point of the observer of the artwork as well. They have their own ideas about what it is the artist is trying to say.
So it's like the artist express and the audience interprets.
Yes, that's what the viewpoint is, not where the art is located.
Because the art where it's like where the art's located in practice in that sense.
Yes.
I thought practices, that what that's saying is that that's the where they're making the art, not where they're viewing the art.
The exhibition space is classified as where you're viewing art.
So it says exhibition spaces and practices.
So yeah, like an exhibition space could be a museum, or like an actual art gallery or studio, or where the artist is actually physically painting and someone comes in to witness that painting being constructed or whatever.
Cool. Okay, so this is the discussion point again. So a child asks for help in drawing a cat. What do you do? How would you respond? And what materials would you use? So if you getting children to do some sort of activity, it's not necessarily that they're drawing a cat, but they come back because they want to draw a cat as part of that activity and they ask for your help in drawing a cat. How would you teach that?
They probably provide like some sort of draft paper or scrap paper that they can practice drawing different shapes that they know make up a cat. So I know that the typical one is like, you know, you draw an M for the ears or whatever, but like providing them with some sort of medium to practice those shapes.
I would ask them if they have a cat.
What's the name again? So,
Yeah, if they have a cat, depending if they have pets, so do you have a cat? What kind of shape do you think its body is? You know, what is it? And how many legs does it have? Is its legs short or long? And if they're drawing like a cat with a giraffe neck, we've got a problem, you know. But just thinking about your own cat at home, what does your cat look like? What colour is your cat? You know? What features does your cat have? maybe providing some pictures of different breeds of cats to look at. Thinking about the shape they use for the body, like Jacinta was saying, the head, the ears, and how to add texture maybe. You could show
Yeah, my idea would be to just say, draw one circle, draw another circle. What does that look like? Looks like a number 8.
Oh yeah,
Two
that's the way
triangles,
I do it. But
put a face and a tail.
Yeah, that's how I do it. But if they wanted to draw an actual cat, like with a round face and a little body and 4 legs.
Yeah.
If you wanted to make it more realistic, or
Yeah, that's what I was going to
like
say.
say a cartoon or something.
Because that's the version I do. I'm thinking more like that. If they want to do a proper, like, to resemble the likeness of the actual cat.
Yeah.
Or give them some books to look at. Maybe they can copy it.
So like providing examples of different drawings of cats, whether it's cartoon, realistic, whether you provide photos.
Yeah, some stills of cats doing their like jumps or I don't know, one paw in the air, whatever. Maybe want to draw like that.
I think it depends if the child is being graded on their drawing of the cat or not. If they're not, if it's just because they want to do an illustration, then what you can do is do a quick sketch and give it to them so they can do a copy. If it's because they're going to be graded on the cat, then absolutely just walk them through the scaffolding, ask them what features the cat has, what's the cat doing, because that will determine what the cat looks
I
like.
think about your cat at home.
I think that sort of scaffolding also would depend on what age the child is. So obviously, like providing them with your own sketch of cat, I'd probably do that for grade 3 or under. And I'd provide the scaffolding for assessment related things, but I'd probably provide the more verbal scaffolding for children grade 3, 4 up.
Depends on what time you have as well.
Yeah, I mean, if you're solely dedicating like an hour lesson to drawing a cat, like that's your hour art lesson. That's something different to it's a Friday afternoon, you've got 15 minutes left of class. So,
Well, let's say it's the end of the what did I do on the weekend, and they're writing their sentences, and then they've got some time left, so they want to do a drawing.
yeah.
And say, oh, can you help me draw a cat? Depends what class.
So sort of like there's lots of things to consider in terms of how you would respond and what the actual context would be. Like, yeah, is it 15 minutes at the end of what I did on the weekend or 15 minutes at the end of the day on Friday?
Or is it a lesson?
Yeah. Or is it like you've written a narrative and you've got half an hour to go and draw a picture or something? Context in terms of that. It's useful.
Cool. Guided discovery will be a good approach. Keep a file of useful pictures. You can talk through the process. For example, how many legs does the cat have? Does the cat have a tail? What shape is the head? What does your cat look like at home? Here's a picture of a cat jumping, waving its paw, whatever.
I hope it's got a tail. If someone does say, oh, my cat doesn't have a tail, we'll be like, oh, no way. It's lost it in an accident or something.
So at each level of learning and development, what approach and terminology will you use? Would you use the same descriptive language for a 2-year-old and a 12-year-old?
No.
No? Yeah. Yeah, I think really this is common sense stuff. But so what approach and terminology will you use across different ages? And I think we need to go into too much detail with this, do we? So different skills, so physical skills, fine motor skills, interaction with peers, adults and other age groups, exploration of materials, the language you use, observation, imaginative, problem solving, symbols and codes, manipulating colours and patterns, and abstraction. Language, light and dark, rough or smooth, thick and thin, hard or soft, heavy, light, positive, negative, space. So line, colour, shapes, illustration, tonal. What does that mean?
The tone of something, it's a bit like shade,
Like
like how light and dark.
Shade.
Like,
But it's more about the depth of the colour. So if something's really strong green or just a pale green, that's more when you're talking about tone rather than just it's dark green, it's light green. You're talking about how strong the colour is.
So I know this is relating back to music, but I think tone as in how does a certain sound make me feel. So in that context, it would be how does a certain shade of colour make me feel. I don't know if that's right, but
I'm just thinking when you're in a Word document and you're choosing a colour, and you've got like say your primary colours, but you want certain depths or lightness, that could be tone too, surely.
Yeah, like you know when you click up on the colour and it's got all the greens or blues,
All
they're all
oranges.
tones of colour. So light blue
tones.
down to dark blue, but it's all still the same base colour, just lighter or darker.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of, the palette and Word.
Yeah, no, that's what tone means.
Yep. What's the difference between hatching and cross-hatching?
Let's say this is your orange and you want to do some hatching on it, just to show where the shade is. If the light's coming from this direction, where's the shade going to be? If this is the sun over here, so it's going to be darker over here. So hatching, you're just making little strokes all the way around, spreading them out more where it's getting lighter, and doing more hatching where it's darker, etc. etc. Cross hatching is then when you go back the other direction to add more depth or more shade. So cross hatching going the other direction.
While you're up there then, what tessellations?
Tessellation, it's actually a mathematical term. We're talking about rotation and flip of the object. So if I was to tessellate this object, it means I would be spinning it or flipping it over.
There you go, I learned something new. And calligraphy, I'm presuming that's in reference to like text.
Fancy writing,
Fancy writing.
with a fountain pen or dipped ink. You want to be traditional with
Like,
feather. Beautiful cursive writing.
So concepts include tone, texture, line, colour, surfaces, shape, observational drawing, pattern, depth, movement. This is visual art. How is that movement?
You could draw a comic strip. And
Oh,
have
okay,
different
yeah,
movements
yeah.
on every page when you click it.
This is our person who's just standing there doing nothing. To add movement to our cartoon, if we put in some like this, then he's waving his hand.
Looks like he's waving.
Or what about you draw, say, the head, then the body, you flick through a page and you see on the pictures. Do you see
Oh
that?
yeah, so slight changes
So
on
it
each
looks
page.
like it's moving.
Or
It's actually
running or
moving
something.
image, yes. I've seen people do those, and some people can actually do them really well on
Yeah.
YouTube and stuff.
So then you've got symmetry, harmony, perspective, and proportion. Is there anything else that you want to explain any further?
Symmetry, we already spoke about. Sarah brought up, said half a picture, and she pointed out that that's almost symmetry, which it is. It's the same like if you're in a coloured triangle, you want all sides to be the same. Fold your page, draw half the triangle coloured out.
What's harmony?
Harmony is talking about bringing the whole image together, using the same elements multiple times or the same colour multiple times to make something interesting and make it look visually correct. If you use an off tone of red to the rest of the reds in there, it's not going to look harmonic.
So processes, so exploration of various media, pencils, crayons, textures and chalk, surfaces, so paper, textured paper or card, wood or clay, using sand or rice, rock, making lines with a mouse using a computer, continuous line, drawing from a story to music, using lines to create rhythm or music, drawing an aerial view, action figures, montage, and mixed media.
Can I ask a rhetorical question? It probably is, but How is various media, pencils, crayons, textures, and chalk?
I have
Are
no
those
idea,
just
that's why I
objects?
paused for a second when I
No,
said it,
to
because I
me,
thought to myself,
those are learning objects. You're using those to create something. It's not to me a form of media.
Media is how you portray a piece of information or an image. So
But that's
in
got
this
nothing to
case,
do with
you use
pencils.
a pencil to draw a picture or to write a sentence.
Is the plural word for medium. So when they're talking about pencils, they're saying use a graphite pencil, use a lead pencil, use a 2B pencil. So they're talking about use different types of pencil, explore using that different type of pencil.
Can't just call it stationery.
Yeah, they could have, but they don't just mean pencils, they also mean use different types of crayons, use pastels, use chalks, use graphite. So when they say explore the different types of drawing,
thank goodness that you guys are into art, because otherwise this would be one boring lecture. There you go, I don't know what that means. What do you think when you see that?
That's from an adult colouring book. You know those calming books that you
Is
colour
it?
in the... I think so. Where you colour in patterns and... I don't know.
How does that make you feel when you see that image?
I look at that and there's so much going on. It's like, maybe it's just playing into my anxiety, but it really is playing into my anxiety. It's not good. Like there's just so much going
Well,
on.
actually,
it's like, I
does
don't
that-
know what to think first.
Does that look like someone to you?
Are we
A
supposed
famous
to say
person?
what it looks like? Or...
Yeah, you can. It looks to me like a famous person done in a very abstract way.
Famous person.
Yeah, maybe that's just my crazy mind, but to me it looks, just looking at the hair, it looks to me like a bit like the Mona Lisa. Just from
Yeah, I
the
wouldn't
long
know.
black hair.
I wouldn't have picked that.
But look, the mouth is very, and the jaw is very masculine. Mona Lisa's a female.
Yeah.
And the fingers, it could be Shrek with those fingers. Just
Such
saying.
an green.
Exactly.
And there's a nice little hat thing on the top.
But
It looks sad, it looks like there's a tear coming out of the left eye.
It's like the two eyes are looking at each other. Is it a rock star? Judging by the hair, does the next slide tell you? Wow, that's useful. I was all guessing and we don't know who it is.
I don't know if it's supposed to be anybody, I'm just asking how does it make you feel, what do you think?
Way too busy. If one of the students produced something like that for me, I'd be referring them to the school council.
well, it depends. If your task was set to the student, say, here's a picture of the Mona Lisa, I would like you to express it in the way that you feel the Mona Lisa should be drawn, and they come up with this. How is that anything against the criteria?
Maybe that was their attempt at doing their self-portrait.
It's a male or something, my opinion. Because of the features.
It's got, like, oh, I think it's got a masculine chin,
Yes, the jaw, the teeth, the nose.
but a feminine
and the fingers.
top half.
Fingers are like fatter.
So moving on to responding. Describing the elements, so the lines, colours, shapes and textures. Preferences, big paper, thin lines, textures, looking, sharing ideas, noticing objects and people. Describing elements, done a lot of that. Looking at children's books, artists and artist drawings. Analysing artworks, responding visually to music or sound. Recognising different styles or methods. Comparing use and perspectives in different cultures. Historical and socio-cultural influences. So guiding questions in asking students to respond. What do you see, hear or feel? And that can be with a visual image like the one before. You don't have to ask what do they see, but what do you hear when you look at this? is interesting? Or when you hear something, what do you see? And always, what do you feel is relevant? Is there anything you do not recognise? Do the components relate to each other? I didn't think that the components of that previous picture related. The mouth area to the rest of the face.
No,
The mouth was its own section.
yes, and
And that
also,
was shown by the white. Yeah.
good.
Like if it had been all like rainbow, the whole thing, you would have thought it was all connected, but because it had a white section and everything else was colourful, we think all that's obviously separate.
And then it had like shoulder length hair or something, so there's probably half male, half female, perhaps. See? That's
See, I
what
look at
highlights as well.
I look at it in terms of the hair, and I'm just like, I know so many guys that have
I know, guys.
shoulder length hair,
I know
or
someone who's
long
got
hair.
more hair than me, my hair's like long.
Yeah.
So, yeah, open to interpretation.
Yeah, well, my brothers used to have long hair.
That white thing under the eyes, that's probably like a face cover.
Oh, it looks a bit like that, yeah.
Like it's hanging there like jewelry, like an Indian bride maybe or something.
So do you want to know about that painting?
Yes.
It's a painting by Picasso from 1939. It's called The Weeping Woman. And what he's trying to say is that sadness brings out dark shades within, which is why it's got the white
Oh.
Sadness brings out the what?
the dark shades within you, so that's why it's black and white, because that's the hole that she's crying out of herself. So her rest of her life on the outside seems like it's fine, but when she's sad, that's bringing out the darkness within her.
Thank goodness you're in this class. I was going to say that, but lucky you're in here to say it for us. I had no idea. I didn't know why that was in there. That picture was in the presentation. So, thank you. What are the textures, shapes, textures? Again, lines, space, form, time, and motion. What is the style of the work? How does it make you feel? Is there a message? So that's the message.
Does there have to be a message in art though? Can there be art for art's sake? So I think, like me as a teacher, like if my students don't know if there's a message in art, then I should really expect that they've got anything from that piece. I don't know, that probably doesn't make a lot of sense, but
Well, that's what we were talking about viewpoint before. So the artist could have created something, and the whole purpose of them was creating it because they wanted to express themselves. They didn't necessarily have a message. But as the viewer of the art, you might interpret a meaning from it, and it might mean something different to you from what the artist was meaning.
What year was that drawn?
1939.
just the fact that you remember that exact year is
The year the World War III started.
mind-boggling.
Picasso was an interesting character anyway. He had some mental issues.
Oh, did he?
You could say that about almost any artist, whether it's visual or performing. There are going to be people out there that are going to argue that some artists have different mental capacities.
I think I can see that on the picture.
Say it again. So the meaning of it is that it's bringing out.
So she's crying, obviously, with all of those tears there. It's called The Weeping Woman. And although there's lots of colour in her life, which is on the outside, when she's feeling sad, it's bringing out that emptiness, that darkness within her, and she's letting it out when she's crying.
And when you know that, it makes so much sense. I would never interpret it like that, but
I wouldn't even have interpreted it as a weeping woman for a start.
I would have just said, like, if someone had actually like sat me down and forced me to try and find meaning, I just would have said it was the artist made it to show contrast between like colour and black and white. I wouldn't have even gone to it's someone who's feeling sad on the inside. I probably wouldn't have even gone there.
and even the lines too, because some of it there's like very strict, you know, like angles, and then the rest of it's like circles and sweeping lines. So to me, it's kind of like a very contrasting. It's in the nose area or above the nose where it's got that V. It's really, to me, like, you know, really strict, whereas in other parts it's kind of.
And the face is like straight, on the right side.
Even those lines coming out of the mouth in front of the fingers,
That's,
they're very strong.
I think she's holding a handkerchief in her hand.
Okay, so in conclusion, developing seeing skills by learning to look at artworks and developing a personal understanding of concepts such as audience or arts elements and principles will be rewarding both individually in terms of lifelong engagement and also for planning quality visual arts experiences for children. And even my own experience now over the last 2 hours has been that I feel like I am missing out on a certain intelligence because I wasn't brought up with this background in art. And like for you to just go, yeah, do you want me to tell you what this means now? I feel like I was just sitting there making things up, and if you go through life just making things up, which means, you know, this is what that means to me, then you are missing the ability to be able to learn from what other people have already known, you know, which is a famous Isaac Newton quote, you know, I'm only able to do what I can do because I stand on the shoulders of the greats before me. And so you can look at that and go, yeah, you've got that historical knowledge, you've got that art knowledge, whereas even for me, like this is right now a very kind of reflective experience and one that makes me think, I think I need to go and learn a bit about art to become more holistic in life and to be able to bring other areas, have other areas of life have more meaning. So yeah, this has been very interesting. I'm grateful that you guys were here today because a lot of it, and even in the last 5 weeks, I have felt like I've stumbled my way through it. One more week, drama. I know a lot more about drama than the other arts. And then we're moving into health and PE. So, any questions on the assignment or anything else that you want to bring up today?
The summit's due Sunday, right?
Right.
Friday.
I thought you were joking then. I was like, no, 11:59 p.m. this Friday.
Friday
7.
And I think it even says on one somewhere, Friday 7.
No, I've got 2 due this week. I must have muddled them up. One's Sunday and one's Friday. So the one I thought of was due Friday is not due Sunday because this one's due Friday.
I think I've got the next 2 weeks. I've had one due today, got one due Friday, I've got one due next Monday, one due next Friday. It's just.
Is there a class next week again, or is it semester?
Yeah, there is a.
There's next
Next
week
and next semester break.
Yeah.
So it's week 6, we've got week 7, semester break, and then week 8.
Oh, I don't get semester break because I've been at school.
Yes, which is a bit not good because it doesn't match up with the school term. So
No, it doesn't.
next week is the school holidays, week off, and then ours is the week after.
Well, even I know Paul and Jeremy said the same thing. It's strange that they don't
I don't
add up,
know.
but it just seems to be the way the unis on there.
Are you going to the digital workshop?
Yeah.
What are you going to do?